everybody, it's Laura, and today I'm going to show you how to make orchids out of polymer clay. All of the flowers that I make are made with tools and molds that are originally designed for gum paste flowers. I've just changed it so that it works for fondant, for fondant clay, for polymer clay. Okay, so what you need to make an orchid is, for this one I'm going to use red clay and I'm going to use yellow clay. When picking your clays, you want one that has the most bend to it, so your flowers, the petals can bend some. If they're very, very brittle, then if you hit them all, they're going to break and shatter. And that'd be really sad, especially if you're making them for a special event, like a wedding. Okay, these are the different cutouts I'm going to use. This came with an orchid kit, I'll link below, and this came with an all-purpose rose kit and lots of other type of flowers. This is a mold for a rose petal, and this is a mold for an orchid petal. You're also going to need a ball roller, a needle tool, some wire. This wire is really shiny and thin. In previous videos, I've used ones that have string wrapped around them, but for this one, the way it works, it's better to have a nice, thin, non-covered wire, some paintbrushes, good old pasta roller, and then here's my lineup of chalk colors. All of these are just artist grade square pastels that I've taken a knife and just shaved off into these little pots. Okay, so let's get started. What you're going to do is you're going to roll your clay out to pretty thin. Mine is probably around a 7 or an 8 on my machine. Sometimes I'll even go up to 9, but for this time I just went with an 8. So you're going to do 2 teardrop shapes. This is from a rose petal mold. And then we're going to do 3 of these. This was originally kind of like a tulip mold, I think, that I kind of bent around to make it be a nice kind of football shape. And then this one is the weirdest little shape. This is the middle parts of the orchid where the stamen and all that good stuff is, and really defines, makes it look like an orchid. So we're just going to cut them all out, just like cookies. Going to keep our extra clay close at hand because it comes in handy for another step coming up. All right. The other thing you get to do with this little shape here is you're going to cut right here. Just a little divide, just to make those into like the tails of a like an evening jacket. I don't know. Okay, so now we've got our petals cut out. We can set these aside. Now we're going to take this center part of our orchid. We're going to set it right up here. This is a foam board that I put a paper towel on because it is going to get messy. And then I take my colors and I pick which ones ever I want to kind of shade it. I'm going to make the center of it, the center have more shades of red and orange to it so that matches, it looks like it's coherent with the rest of the flower. If it was just bright yellow, it would work, but a little bit of shading can go a very long way and can really add some more authenticity to your piece. Authenticity? Whatever. Okay, I'm going to do that on one side and see how it's got just some nice faded color on there, and then do it on the other side as well. It is important to do both sides. Otherwise, you'll get it all done and one side will be the stark yellow and you're like, what? How'd that happen? Okay, so we've got this guy about ready. The last thing we do to it before it's time to move to our petals is I take right between these 2 wings, I make a hole with my needle tool. And now carefully set him to the side. Now I'm going to flip my foam board over, nice and dirty as you can see. I'm going to take one of my petals. This is one of the raindrop petals. And I take my ball roller. And what you're going to do is you're going to thin out the edges of the petals. You want to make the petals on the edges as thin as you can because that's what a petal on a flower is. It's very thin. If you made the entire piece this thin, it'd be almost impossible to work with, in my opinion. So we just thin out the edges. And we'll do this to the teardrop shapes and the football shapes. Very scientific terms, I know. We'll do this to all of them. And then we get to do the fun part. We get to do the coloring to the edges. Flip it back over. I put this paper towel on here to protect my foam board because I've used lots of different colors, lots of different flowers, and it's just nice to be able to change it. Because if I was doing this and next I did a white flower right afterwards, then some of this chalk would easily transfer onto it and it would really contaminate what I was trying to do. For these red, oh, caught myself. Sometimes I forget to do this step. We got to add the texture to it. And you want to do the texture before you add the chalk. I've tried it the other way and the flowers tend to rip, and then also the colors on the chalk end up staining my mold. So you just put it between the two and push them together, and just that little step can really add some beautiful veining and texture to your petal. Once you've done that, then you can add the color. For the football shapes, which are the sepals, part of the orchids, those I use the Orchid Mold. For the petals, they're just the side parts of it, I use a rose mold. So we'll just press these guys, and then also like we did for the centerpiece, we're going to add coloring to them, which is a step I tried to skip too. For these, I like to use a nice kind of deep maroon color to really bring out some of this wonderful petal texture. You want a nice soft brush, because if you use a very thick or heavy brush, then it's going to really push down all that texture you just created. And this can take, you can spend a very long time doing this. It really is relaxing. I find it really fun. Just add more texture to it. The base color of the clay was just a starting point. You can even try a lighter color and add, almost make it look like pollen on there. The lighter colors are harder to get to show up on the darker clay. But experiment with it. See what works well for you. Take time, look on Google, look on whatever, and see what the flower that you're trying to create looks like. Look and see how the shading is. So, another important thing, make sure to do it on both sides of all your, wherever you're adding color, make sure to do it on both sides. Okay, now that one I'm not going to spend an uber amount of time on. And then also with these petals, we need to put a hole in them. So I'm going to put it probably about 1/2 centimeter in onto both types of petals. Both, here's one here, and then here. Now, rather than repeating myself on those, you saw what I did. So what I'm going to do is that I take these pieces and it's time to bake them. I bake things in little rounded bowls. These are ceramic bowls that I happen to have in my cupboard. And I take the petals and I lay them in there so that it's got a little bit of curve to it. And the petal will bake like that and helping to get a nice curve shape. I do that for all the petals, and so I put them all in here so that they would bake just like that. This little guy, this is going to be the hardest part of making your orchid. Prepare to dislike this part. Something you're going to need is some tin foil. So I got a little piece of tin foil. I reuse this stuff over and over again. One roll I think has lasted me months. First thing I'm going to make is a ball of tin foil. And what we're going to do is we're going to, there's 1, 2, 3, these 3 kind of shapes of a clover. We're going to put the tin foil ball right in the center of that, and we're going to have it all kind of roll up around it, kind of like it's clasping it. Now, with these little tiny pieces, my fingers are too clumsy, and any kind of tools just are really sharp and leave marks. So what I found works best is a paintbrush. So I'm going to use the same paintbrush because it's all the same colors I was using before. So I'm going to take and just gently fold it up and push. I'm going to push to make that clay actually stick to the tinfoil ball. All 3 of these, just gently swoop them up, and so they're all kind of cupping around that tinfoil ball and actually touching the physical ball. The next step is our evening coattails. These are probably, this took me the longest time to figure out, so I want to share my wisdom with you. So I took tinfoil and I made it into a little tube shaped thingy, and I'll set it right here. And again, a brush, I just figured this out today, but a brush works so much better than other tools. And I'm just going to have them kind of touch the very tip of this. I apologize, I don't have zoom on my camera. And I'm just going to gently wrap them around. And then I will, let me try to get that a little bit closer for you, because it's really important when you're making an orchid. That will then bake. This can bake flat. The petals we want to bake with a little bit of a rim to it, but this can bake flat. So then you carefully, this part's nerve-wracking, transfer it over, and then you bake this and all the other petals. These are very, very thin, and most recommendations are 275 for 15 minutes. I usually put them in for 15 minutes and they're good to go. They're really, really thin, so they bake and cure pretty quickly. Okay, so now we'll pretend we put those all in the oven. Yay, jolly good. Here are the pieces after they've come out of the oven. As you can see, it's cured with a lovely little ridge to it. How do I show that? Sorry. It's just kind of cupped because it baked on the edge, on that rim. So here's our 2 more raindrop, and there's more of our football petals. And then the really important part is the center part of our orchids. Getting the tin foil out of that can be a challenge. You want to use your needle tool to gently push it out of there. So now what we have to do is we get to assemble it. So I take my piece of floral wire, and these just happen to be some jewelry pliers I had around. Any kind of pliers would work, or whatever helps you. I don't care. And then I take and I make it into just a little hook on the end. And then I'm going to flatten that so the hook is at a 90 degree to the rest of the wire. Got that ready to go, and then I'm also going to get ready a little piece of yellow clay. Again, it's going to be kind of a football shape. Why? You'll see. I'm going to gently push this on here, on the top of that little, whoop, on the top of this little wire. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to assemble it all together. The first thing that goes on the end of our wire is our center piece. And I'm going to gently bring that all the way down, whoop, and push it in. What we've done is that little piece of yellow clay is kind of a stopper so the wire doesn't keep coming through. You could have it be just the green wire, but then you'd have this little piece of green wire showing up, and that'd be terrible. You don't want that. You don't want people to see how you made this. It's supposed to look like a flower, not look like something you made. Then you go in, this is hard to show too, sorry, but the edges of that little center part, we're going to just gently push that down. If you have any kind of polymer clay, it'd probably be beneficial to use it this time. I have not invested in that yet and probably should. To finish it off, I like to gently take my needle tool and put it right down the middle so it kind of looks like a little hamburger bun. And again, because I put powder and color on everything, I'll put some powder on there, just to again add more shading to it. Now that's the hardest part done. If you've gotten that far, congratulations. Set him down, or her, whatever. Now we get to thread on the raindrop petals. I like to take a little bit of extra clay, get it nice and warm. Again, polymer clay glue probably be good at this point, but I just use some clay that I have around, and I stick it right on the end of here. It's the same color that it was made out of, so it's very similar. And then I'm going to thread this on so that the wet clay I just put on Yeek! The clay I just put on is sandwiched between the two, and so it's going to act as like a glue. Hey, that rhymes. And then we'll repeat that for the other petal. I have tried doing it where after I bake the clay, then I put the holes in, and it just really does not work well. I don't recommend it. So we'll continue to assemble it together. Now if you're like me and your fingers got in the way and you've kind of squished your centerpiece here, you can always kind of reform it. It happens. Or if worse comes to worse, just take it out and put a new one in. It's okay. Now we have our last 3 petals. And again, I'll use just a little piece of clay as my glue. I put this clay glue, or whatever you want to call it, just on the very tip right beside the hole. Slide it down. Based on my observations, an orchid looks, there's the 2 petals on the side, and then there's 1, 2, and 3, and so that's where these guys will all go. So I'll put clay on each of them and then thread them on and gently push it all together. At that point, you got a pretty good looking orchid. I mean, I think it looks pretty reasonable, but if you want to, you can do a few more steps. Now this is, it's perilous. It can be kind of nerve-wracking because all your pieces are all put together there. But if you want to, you can also on the back wrap up this stem. I'm going to take, I got this clay here, I'm going to take this and gently smooth it down so that it's all, that it kind of looks like a base of a flower might look. Is this perfect? No. But this is the part that you're not going to see as much unless you really don't know how you'd be displaying it. So now it's kind of like a little pyramid or some shape at the base of it that kind of puts it down. If you want to get super fancy, you can take some green clay too and give us a little bit of slice of this. And I'm just going to take that real quick, flatten it down. I have not studied to see what the back of an orchid looks like, but this is kind of what I do for roses, so I reappropriated it for this too. I just made little shapes out of clay, kind of looking like a kayak, I suppose, and put it on there. And I'll put probably 4 of them on. There we go. And one more just for fun. So that kind of hides everything, this wire and such, and if you wanted to, you could put the green clay up the wire some. Once it's all baked, what I would probably do is take floral tape and go all the way down it so that it would be nice and uniform look. So now once you have it like this, then you're going to bake it again. You probably will do at least 15 minutes. I may even do a half hour because some of this clay does get kind of thick. So now you have got, once it's baked, you have your orchid. What's cool about this method is you do all kinds of different colored orchids. This one is obviously red clay with a yellow center. Another one that I did that I was really liked was this. I'm not going to show you yet. It's white clay that I used pink chalk on, and then there's also white clay in the center as well, but I put yellow chalk on, and it ended up looking like this, which I am very happy with. I think it looks really cool, although since you know my secrets, you can see when my wires is kind of showing through. I didn't hide that well enough, so I'll have to fix that. And then on the back, the same thing I did. I'm really happy this one turned out. I think it's pretty darn authentic looking. What I will do after, because this one has been completely baked, its back part's been baked and its center's all baked, what I'll do is I'm working on finding the perfect matte or satin gloss to put on it. I enjoy putting, not gloss, sealer on it. I enjoy putting a sealer on it because I really feel like it gives it the finished look. But you got to be careful because if you use the wrong one, then your orchid gets super shiny and looks like it's made out of wax rather than made out of what flowers are made out of. So here's my tutorial on how to make orchids. I hope that it helps you in your design, and I hope it can help you make some as well. If you have any questions, please email me at lauradesigns1021@gmail.com or leave a comment. I am new at this. This is just what has worked for me, and I wanted to share my knowledge. If you see my other videos, I've also done videos on how to make, I call them my marigold roses, and also irises. The iris videos, they don't look as pretty on camera as they are in person because it's just such a dark color and I've got really basic lighting. But these are the flowers and what someone on Reddit described as my bouclés instead of bouquets, which I love. So, thank you for watching, and I wish you the best of luck as you make orchids. Goodbye. Clunk.